Let's talk about all things happening in the world of sports. From the latest Saints moves to all that happens in college football, along with in-depth interviews and much more. It's time for Sports Chat with George Faust.
Welcome into this edition of Sports Chat. Thanks so much for joining us. I am, we're talking UL track is a little bit of what we're going to talk about. We've also got a book to talk about. It's Coach Tommy Badon. He's joining us today, and we're gonna dive into a lot of things. Coach, first off, thanks so much for spending some time with us. I know you have the opportunity to do a lot of different things, so I appreciate you making some time for us. And we'll start with this as we kind of get things rolling here. You took over as Cajuns coach. The head coach, about 3 years ago?
Actually, interim in November of 23, but actually, named the full-time coach in March of 24.
Gotcha. So you've been around the program for years, yeah. Correct? I mean that's kind of I know you as a football coach, yeah. Because when I first got here, you were the head football coach at Westminster Christian up in Opelousas.
Right. Yeah. Well, so I came up when kind of you had to be a coach, so you did kind of whatever you did. But I did start out as a football coach, honestly. I played for UL from 77 to 81. I came out and I got offered a job at my old high school, Turlings. The original offer was to be the offensive and defensive line coach. We didn't have big staffs back then, right? We had 3 coaches. And Bobby Green was the head coach at the time. I don't know if you know Bobby, but Bobby was the head coach because he had just got promoted. My old high school coach, unfortunately, I got let go, and they promoted Bobby. And so Bobby called me, and but the kicker was, hey, you got to be the head track coach. So I'm fresh out of college, just finished playing football, and very excited to make a paycheck, right? Yeah. It's my first check. And I would have told them I'd have swept the floors. I swear. They'd have said, so you got to sweep the floors and whatever. So I actually coached.
You probably ended up having to do that.
I did. So quite frankly, I coached. I was offensive defensive line coach in football. And then I actually coached. I was the assistant basketball coach also. And then I was the head track coach. And I did drive the bus for basketball and track. I had to get my CDL. So that was quite a introduction to what coaching is all about. And also, by the way, I taught 6 classes in between there when I first came up. So that's how I got to be a track coach. Yeah. So quite honestly, I took that job just not really knowing what even to expect. My goal was to stay one day ahead of the kids, yeah. And I just started, figuring it out. I don't like really losing much, so I just wanted to be as good a coach as I could. And I just started learning some things, and I found some mentors along the way, and that's kind of how I segued into, I guess, before I went into college coaching, I guess I was one of the guys that was a football coach that was a track guy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, which was, I guess, a good thing for me because that's how I ended up getting into college.
Gotcha. And so, you have the opportunity to so how did it start? So you're at Turlings, and then when do you go to become a head football coach in high school? When did that happen?
So I was a head coach at Turlings for a year. It didn't work out. It was bad. It wasn't a good situation, quite honestly. I was young, very arrogant. I thought I was in charge, and I really wasn't. But I learned a lot. Sometimes you learn from bad experiences, right? And so I ended up Bobby Green had left to go to USL as the running back coach, and in like a lot of situations there was a head coaching change and the new coach didn't keep him. So Bobby was the previous coach at Turlings, and I was working for him. When he left, they promoted me, right? So he went to college for 1 year, and I was the head coach for 1 year. Well, he got offered the job at Lafayette High as the head coach and asked me to go with him as the defensive coordinator, which was what I did under him before at Turlings. So that's how I ended up at Lafayette High. I ended up my first spring coaching baseball with Sammy Tolley, and who's still around, by the way. And then
sure is.
And then I coached track with Coach Longson. So I actually coached football baseball, and track.
track.
My first spring at Lafayette High.
Okay.
It was quite a whirlwind experience. And then my second year there, or my fall there, I coached football, was defensive coordinator. But in the spring, I only coached track. And we had a really good track team, and I was blessed to have the opportunity to coach some national level athletes. We had one of the best high jumpers in the country. We had one of the best pole vaulters in the country, and we had one of the best hurdlers in Louisiana, maybe the number one guy in Louisiana. So we had three national level high school kids. And back then there were some major high school competitions that you could bring your kids to. There's a bunch now, but back then there was only a couple. And there was one called Golden West, Sacramento, California. And I raised some money and I brought a kid over there, my pole vaulter. He ended up third, actually. But while there, I met the recruiting coordinator from Texas A&M. He was a very young guy, extremely energetic, go-getter. What he didn't know was my pole vaulter was not going to qualify academically for D1. He was going to have to go to JUCO, but he was recruiting him pretty hard. Well, as kind of fate would have it, I left there and I went to Arizona where they were hosting the today we call it the under-20 national championships, but back then they called it the junior national championships. Well, the two other kids, Mike St. Julian and Arsenault the hurdler, they came meet me in the pole vaulter. So I had three kids at the junior nationals from one high school.
Nice.
So I didn't know it at the time, but I guess that was pretty special.
Yeah.
So the same guy from A&M was at that meet. So we hung out for another week. So now we had been kind of hanging out for 2 weeks. Well, unbeknownst to me, this guy's name is Steve Sylvie. And 2 weeks after we left that meet, that meet in Arizona, I get a call from Steve Sylvie. And he says, "Hey, man, really enjoyed hanging out with you. I was so impressed. You had three guys at the meet." He said, "I've just got a job at a Blinn College. And I want you to come and I want you to coach the field events for me, be the field event coordinator, and help me recruit." I said, "Steve, where's Blinn College, bro?"
Right.
Like, "Oh," he said, "you never heard of it? It's the best track team in America. Man, he got a president, he's pro track." And like, okay, Steve, where is it? Where is this place? It's between Houston and Austin on Highway 290. It's right in a great place, heart of Texas. So immediately he's recruiting me, right? Well, what I didn't know was he is maybe the best recruiter ever. I'm serious, in college track. So he recruits me there. I go there. It's a long story, but the president interviews me, and Steve had obviously told him I was taking the job by the tone of the conversation.
Sure.
Now, I went to a place I didn't even know it was. I had no idea how good we were. And so I ended up coming back. I'm thinking Bobby Green and Coach Lawson are going to talk me out of it, right? I come back and I talk to them, and they both kind of told me the same thing. He said, "Man, you're 27, chance to be in college coaching. But it's do or die. You ain't got no kids, go for it."
Yeah.
That is not what I wanted to hear, man.
I'm thinking, stick around.
I'm thinking, Bobby was the best man in my wedding, thinking he's going to talk me out of this, and he didn't. So after then, I had my wife, my current wife, right? I had to kind of convince her, and so I ended up taking this job. You're talking about flying by the seat of my pants, man. Like, I go take this job. Well, what Steve didn't lie about. This was the best track team in America, all levels. Better than any D1 school, better than any. They had this conglomeration of unbelievable athletes from, I think, 13 countries, all in this little town in the middle of Texas. And so we won. I was there for 2 years, and we won indoor and outdoor national championships both years. And so that was good on the resume.
Yeah, right? Yeah, sure.
And that's how I ended up as a college coach. And then Coach Lawson called me up. He was the coach at Lafayette High. They offered him the job at UL, the previous coach that got fired. And Coach Lawson called me and said, "Hey, man, I got offered this job, but probably the biggest compliment I've ever had to this day, honestly." He called me up. He's like my second dad. And he said, "But I'm not doing it without you. I'm not going to take the job unless you come with me."
Cool.
And I'm just like, "Oh, well, how much is it paying?" And he said 18,000. I said, I can't go for 18,000, coach. That's ridiculous. I'm not coming for less than 20.
right.
The big negotiator, right?
That's it.
So I started my first Division I job, $20,000
Gotcha.
at UL, and the rest is kind of history.
It's funny. You talk about how much you get paid, and you probably do it for nothing at that point in your career, right? Because I've been at that spot too. Right. My first job in television. Yeah. It's like I made people always like when I go to talk to schools and stuff like that, they'll always ask, "How much do you make?" Like they tell the students not to ask that, right. But some kid always does, right. And that's fine. And so I'm like, well, here's what I'll tell you. My first job, I made $15,000 a year. My first job as a weekend sports anchor in Meridian, Mississippi, full time. That was $438 or $468 every 2 weeks. And I had rent, a truck note, and insurance, and then maybe about $20 to go to the grocery and go get mac and cheese or something, And that was
ramen, maybe
ramen. Yeah, live off of ramen. Yeah, but it's funny because you think about the salaries of what you worked for at one point. And,
you just did whatever,
Yeah,
you loved it.
You were yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, talk about that.
You're passionate. Yeah, we got the book here. That's Just Coach B. Yeah. Here's the book right here. You can check it out. Is it out yet, Coach?
Oh, yeah. It's on Amazon, man.
It's on Amazon?
Oh, yeah. You can go. It's on Kindle Unlimited, man. You can get it for free.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool thing.
So we're going to talk more about this. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about the book. It's called That's Just Coach B, and you can pick it up wherever your books are sold, and
especially Amazon.
Especially Amazon. And don't go away. We'll have much more here on Sports Chat. Tommy Badon is our guest this week, the Raging Cajun track coach. We're going to talk some UL track. We'll do that all. We got a lot to talk about this episode, so don't go anywhere. Much more coming up right here on Sports Chat.
Sports Chat with George Faust.
Welcome back to Sports Chat. George Faust. Tommy Badon is our guest this week on this episode of Sports Chat, and he's got this book out. It's called That's Just Coach B. Here, I'm going to put it over here. Ethan, there you go. And you can go check it out at on Amazon and the like, wherever you buy books. Yeah. I'm sure it's there. And, Coach, let's talk a little bit about this. First off, the idea for the book, why did you want to write a book, and what made that spark in your mind?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Hollis, I coached Hollis Conway, and Hollis wrote a book, and he's been honestly on me for probably 10 years. Like, Coach, you got to write a book, man. You got to write a book. Like, okay. So I actually sat down 3 different times to write a book, and I think the farthest I got was 3 pages.
Yeah.
And I just didn't fit it in, and It is a time-consuming thing. Well, in the meantime, I've also trying to maybe get some speaking engagements outside of track, to different audiences. And one of the things that talking to some people, having a book to introduce yourself to these like conventions or other things is probably almost necessary. You almost have to have a book to promote yourself. So I heard that, and then I read a book by the coach at the University of Florida, Mike Holloway. It was called The Holloway. That was the name of the book, I think. It was great. I read it, and I don't know how this happened, but the same publishing company solicited me. And asked me if I was interested. And so I guess they target coaches. And they read my bio. It was pretty lengthy. So I agreed to do it. And basically, I got full editing rights to it. So my background, I don't know if you know this, but along the way, I paid my way through college. I was a writer. I worked for the Daily Advertiser. I had my own column at one time in the Vermilion. So, I mean, it was back in the day. It was a weekly, the weekly. Oh my gosh, can't remember the name of it. That's terrible. Anyway, I wrote. So anyway, they would send me an unedited chapter, and then I got to pretty much make it my own, kind of in my own language. So that made it a doable process for me. And so I tore it up pretty good, a lot, added and subtracted. Then we did the editing where we could add places, move things around. So it was a really professional process. It was great. And
Cool.
it was a good experience, too. It was a great experience. I met some really good people. And that was probably the only way I would have actually got it out is for some help, right? Yeah. And so that was kind of the reasoning behind it. And then once I started actually doing the process, and it got to be fun, I kind of got look forward to them and our interaction and telling the stories.
Yeah. So it's the title, you were telling me a little bit about how that came about. It's just that's what people call you, right?
Yeah, Coach B is what they call me. And then whenever I kind of maybe start fussing or whatever, some of the older athletes will tell the younger athletes, "I don't worry, that's just Coach B. You know, he's you good. It's just Coach B." And so I thought that was a cool name for the book. And then part of the process was they're asking me about how I've kind of been a coach that's taken over programs that were either very underdeveloped or maybe other people would see as not very good situations to go into. And I've kind of built that. You know, you met me at Westminster. That's in the book, the whole process of how that happened.
Sure.
So, you know, I kind of developed a belief system on what it takes to start from nothing. And that's a whole chapter in there, but there's certain things I believe that you got to instill in the kids in order to be successful. And I try not to have a track team or a football team. I try to have a program where the difference is if everything lines up, you got a good senior class, maybe some good kids, you'll win 1 year, right? But maybe the next year, maybe not so much. A program, Louis Cook, you mentioned, you talked to him earlier,
sure,
right?
He was a guest.
You're gonna if you have a program, that means that you're gonna be consistently winning every year. You may not win the championship, but you're gonna be consistently in the hunt. You're gonna be considered a successful program, not just, oh, I won this 1 year and that was because I just had the best senior class in the history of the school, right? That's not really what I was always after. So anyway, and so I kind of developed that over a long period of time, and I thought that putting those things in the book would probably be the most valuable part of the book. That and mentors, finding people who you can lean on and teach you things that or maybe somebody you aspire to be like. Coach Cook would be one of them, right? I want to be like that guy, so you kind of ask them questions and go watch them and see how they do things, and you may not do it exactly their way, but you're going to take bits and pieces from the different people who mentor you for sure. So that's really an important aspect of coaching as well, or actually in any line of work.
Right. Yeah. They have that. I don't know if it's something that somebody just came up with, but like the 7 steps of being a leader or something like that. And, a couple of them are, like begin with the end in mind, things like that. I always reference that because I know when my sons were young, my oldest son was younger, that was something that they put in the schools. And so it's an attitude thing, I think, with a lot of, if you can instill that, creating that legacy more like of longevity of a program or not just a 1 year. I get that idea and how important that is, because a buddy of mine one time posed the question to me, and he was like, let's just say the Saints could win the Super Bowl once and that'd be it. Would you take that, or would you take a sustained 15-year period of being maybe going to 2 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl?
Right.
Would you take that, or would you take the 1 Super Bowl win and never do it again?
Yeah.
What are you taking?
That's
that?
tough.
Yeah.
If you're a Saints fan, you might take the Super Bowl.
Right.
If you're another team, you might take the other one, because then you might have hope of winning another one.
Correct. But it's an interesting question, isn't it? Like,
would you rather be the Buffalo Bills?
Correct.
That went to 4 straight and never won, right?
Right. I definitely would have won I think I answered the question. My answer was I want the sustained success.
Right.
Because when you're not successful, when it's not a lot of fun.
Right.
It's not enough. Like, at least if you're getting to the NFC Championship game, or whatever the championship games, you're having an extended season. All your fans are engaged. there's a lot of excitement. You get to the Super Bowl, great, and the Saints luckily have already won one, so we don't have to worry about that if you're a Saints fan. But you see what I'm saying? Like what you're talking about there with regards to the program is, and I think in high school it's a little bit more, a little easier to kind of make that happen because you kind of have more control of who's in your program, so to speak.
I think too, like, I think culturally we've changed. I think culturally there was an appreciation for coaches that consistently won, but maybe didn't always win the championship, right? I do think culturally we've changed to you either win the national championship or bust. You either make the college playoffs or bust. You either win the Super Bowl or bust, right? So we're firing coaches now.
For getting to the Mario Cristobal's in trouble, right? Because he got to the championship game.
Look at Coach Franklin at Penn State, right?
Yeah,
the dude goes to the semifinals. The next year he loses 3 games in a row. He's out.
Yeah.
Like what back in the day that would have never happened because they would have had an appreciation for what he did to build the program to that point and the gains he had made over the course of 5, 6, 7 years. Not what have you done for me lately? Oh, we lost 3 games in a row. Some of the boosters are mad. So, and I think that cultural shift, even at the high school level. Everybody's looking for the state championship. But what about teams that win and make the playoffs every year, right? They go to maybe the semifinals or they make it to the dome even maybe, but they just never quite win. Are they not successful? Like, is that not a successful program? You win 10 games, 4 or 5 years in a row. Like, what are we gearing success and what are we teaching these kids? Like, you're teaching the kids that if you don't win the penultimate champ, so I always talk about that in track. Some of my kids think, well, if I don't win the gold medal, if I don't win first, I'm not succeeding. I'm like, well, you ain't never going to succeed in track because there's only one dude winning the gold medal at the Olympics, and unless you can beat that person, every other meet you're not successful. Because you win the gold medal at some little podunk meet that you go to, that don't mean nothing, right? And you go against major competition though, and you get second, but you do your best by a far.
Right. You have a personal record.
Yeah, right. I mean, you just did the best you've ever done in your life, but you didn't win. That is way better than winning some little podunk meet and don't just have to like get by to win. You know?
Yeah.
I don't even have to hardly try.
Yeah.
Because I'm so good. Well, I mean, that doesn't.
That's not making you better.
No.
Yeah.
And so I use Hollis Conway. Hollis is the American record holder in the high jump, right? Well, he never won the gold medal. He was number 1 in the world 3 times. I mean, he's number 1 in America 7 years in a row. I mean, he did not win the gold medal at the Olympics. It's hard to do. It's a worldwide sport. It's not just an American sport, and so it's a tough thing to do. Now his second time around, he tied for first, but because of misses, because they count back. So because of misses, he only got the bronze medal. The other 2 guys missed less. So they made the same height, but the other guys missed less earlier. Yeah. So he gets third, right?
It's a tie break.
It's brutal, dude.
It's a tough tie break.
It's brutal, right? Yeah. So anyway, so I think that it's important that I try to keep everything in perspective. I know where I've started some programs, and whether or not we actually won the actual penultimate competition, I didn't want to discard the accomplishment.
Right.
The accomplishment that these kids did from starting with nothing, no belief, nothing to really hang your hat on, to building something to be proud of, right? So you don't win the penultimate championship, but you build something to be proud of. That's a whole, when you're 30 or 40 or whatever, the fact that you didn't win the penultimate championship might be less important than look at all we did those 4 years and all the friendships I made, things that we did because we were good and we cheered for each other or whatever, know?
Yeah.
I've got a lot of my teams have reunions, and most of the ones that have reunions are the ones who were super successful. They have something to this shared thing, right? We started going after something together, and we finished it up.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and you're right about the way the culture has shifted, because success is not now deemed as, hey, we were able to win 15 games in a year and got to the semifinals, then you didn't get the champion. It's amazing how that I think that's what personally, that, like, looking at it from a high school perspective, I think that's what I kind of like about high school athletics, because even though, yes, everybody's trying to get a state championship, you can have sustained success over a long period of time, and so when you have that, even though a team doesn't win a state championship, that doesn't necessarily mean they weren't successful or they didn't accomplish a lot in their time on the field there.
It doesn't mean that's not the goal.
Mm-hmm. Right? Correct.
But if you set high expectations and high goals, you may not reach them, right? I mean, you may not get them. That's why they're a dream is something that's unattainable, right? A dream is something that's pie in the sky. But if you set your goals high enough, they may be unattainable, but it doesn't mean it's a dream.
Yeah, and I like the idea of the process, like following a process, not so much chasing a result.
Right.
And I know like Coach Saban always preaches that, and I know Coach Cook has a similar mindset over at Notre Dame as well, where we're doing it this way, and we know it's successful. Sometimes we get to where it's the pinnacle, and other times we fall short, but we're always doing the same. We have the same process, and that's allowed success. So,
and we as coaches, we have to kind of guard ourselves. I get caught up in the championship.
Sure,
right? I get caught up in it big time. And I joke about it a lot, but I tried winning, I tried losing, and I really like winning better. And finishing second, and sometimes it doesn't feel so good, but finishing second is better than 13th. Right? I mean, there's 13 teams in our conference. We got second on the men and second on the women this year.
Yeah.
And obviously, it wasn't long ago that we weren't in that mix. We weren't fighting for the championship at the end of the meet, and now we're in it. And I think going into the outdoor meet this year, we're going to be in it. Yeah, we have to fight to the finish. We may come up short, we may win it, but whatever happens, as long as we're going after it and we're in the discussion, it's kind of cool, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, we're going to have much more with Coach Tommy Badon. His book is called "That's Just Coach B." You can check it out at Amazon and other retailers where you get books, and go check it out. There is a part of the book I saw. I was flipping through, and I'm looking at the table of contents here, and I'm an amateur coach. I coach my son's teams. I really think I may have added to my calling. I didn't think I missed my calling because I still get to do it, but I'm not on your level or even Coach Cook's level or college level. But I enjoy coaching. I enjoy being around the guys and the camaraderie of that. But I saw something in here I want to ask you about, and we'll do that when we come back here on Sports Chat. Tommy Badon, our guest this week.
Sports Chat with George Faust.
Welcome back into Sports Chat. Tommy Badon, he's the Raging Cajun head track and field coach. And, Coach, thanks so much for some time this week, as we appreciate you spending some time with us. You have the book here. That's Just Coach B. I'll put it over here there, Ethan. Ethan's taking care of us on behind the scenes there. That's Just Coach B. Amazon's Amazon's where you can find it. I was just looking at some of the stuff here. You got in one of the chapters, it's the 5 P's of coaching, and I just kept on glancing down, and it says something about tuck in your shirt, and I think I have an idea what that might mean, but kind of tell me a little, like, what is that? Is that keep yourself in line, basically?
I think it's more of do things. I was one of the stories in here is my first mentor was my dad, right? My mom actually was the little pistol that held the family together, like a lot of families. But my dad was a World War II vet, and he didn't say much, but he led by example, and he said, just little offhanded things along the way. But one of the things, things like, if you're going to do something, do it right. Mm-hmm. If it's worth doing, you're going to work hard at it. One of his favorite sayings was, the only thing you get for free is nothing, right? And I kind of believe that, right? So it's it's kind of a way of saying, like, you know, you don't have to have a lot of rules. My dad didn't have a lot of rules for the house. It was basically, son, I expect you to do the right thing. Well, I kind of think people know what that means. Like, you don't have to have a million rules, you know, and so we try to get them to just do the right thing, you know, go to class, you know, do your work, study, you know, just turn the paper in, right? You know, do your project, show up on time, you know, work hard when you come to practice. You know, it's like, do you not know you're supposed to do that? Like, it's right. Not that complicated, but people make it complicated. Gotcha. So it's just really a kind of a common sense approach to doing things on a daily basis. And what you're talking about, the process, I don't really use that word, but more like make choices on a daily basis, because part of the last P is where we are judged in every line of work by performance, period. Outcome-based society. We are an outcome. We're not socialist, right? We're an outcome-based society. We get paid for doing a good job. We get a trophy, right? If we do good things along the way. So we're an outcome. So the last P is, if I'm going to be judged on performance, then I've got to look at outcome-based vision. What's my final outcome? What do I want to get out of this? And then every day is steps along the way to reach that outcome. It might be individually. It might be an individual goal. If I'm a realtor, it might be, you know, sell 5 houses a month. Okay, well, that's a great outcome. How am I going to get there? It ain't by sitting on the sofa hoping people call me to buy a house, right? I'm going to have to do things on a daily basis to sell those 5 houses a month, right? So I think in sports, Nick Saban, you know, that was his big thing. Yeah. We're going to work today, and we're not going to worry about game 12. We're going to work today to get better today. And we're going to work better today because today is going to help us by the time we get to game 12. So I tell my athletes a lot, like, today's workout by itself is not going to make or break your year. But enough of today's workouts missed or not done properly are going to make or break your year. So you miss today's practice, we good. You miss every Wednesday's practice, that's 52 misses. That's going to affect your year, right? And so making those daily choices to be good, you know, or to want to be great. Never had an athlete that was great that I had to make them great. Like, the athletes that are great, they have a desire to be great, and the coach's responsibility is help them on the path to being great. But there's nobody gonna beat you over the head to be great. You can kick them in the butt, yell, scream, holler, do whatever. That might motivate them for the moment, but to ultimately be really, really good, something inside of them has to want to do what other people are not willing to do. That's basically a reality of life.
That's just
the 80-20 rule.
Right, sure.
For everything.
Sure.
You know, because when all things are going to equal, at some point talent kind of all equals out. It's the people who separate themselves, do things different, not just willing to be like everybody else. They're going to do more, eat better, sleep better, drink better, you know, hydrate more. They're gonna self-care. They're gonna do the extra mile. They'll ask, what else can I do? You know, those are the kind of people that you're gonna find that are gonna be super successful. One of I guess one of the biggest misinformations in society today, though, is if I just work hard enough, I can be a D1 athlete. If I just work hard enough, I can get to the Olympics. That's not true. God gives us all talents, right? So that would be like saying, if I just draw enough, if I just sit down and I just draw enough, I could be a professional artist. That's just not true.
Right.
I can't draw. If I did that, my stickman would look a lot nicer. I'd be a professional stickman drawer.
Right.
I would not be good enough to be a professional artist. I just wouldn't. I could blow the tuba all day. I am not going to be in the New York Symphony Orchestra. You know, we're all given certain gifts and talents. If we use those and then get a coach that'll help us get to where we're supposed to get. That's the people, right, that get to be in the New York Philharmonic Orchestra or get to be on Broadway or they have paid a price to get to wherever they're at, but they had to have talent to start with in order to be able to get there.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. It really does. And so I'm just thinking in my limited coaching experience, it's definitely like trying to motivate kids is very challenging to say the least, especially in this day and age where, they got the phones, they got the every 5 seconds they can have somebody text them or snap them or whatever they do. And so I guess the question in that question is, do you find that challenging now in this day and age to be able to? I mean, even when you were, coaching high school football, I don't think that was even an issue, right? I mean, a lot of kids didn't have phones back then, right? I mean, it wasn't as
it wasn't as bad,
predominant, yeah. So, but like, how do you handle that within I guess the culture that we live in now?
I struggle. I guess I do. I struggle with that little, because they use it for music. It calms them. Yeah. We deal with things today that honestly, for the majority of my coaching career, I didn't really. There's a word that's very common now: overwhelmed. People, kids get overwhelmed. George, in my first 35 years of coaching, I never had a kid come to tell me they were overwhelmed. Not one. And nobody. That wasn't a thing. Like, you didn't get overwhelmed.
Right.
Life wasn't overwhelming. Life came at you, and you might have gone in the tank for a while or whatever, but usually people said, okay, let's go. This is stuff happens, and but now it is really different when it comes to that. Mental health and some of those things that we deal with today. That is a challenge, and sometimes I don't get it. You have the opportunity to be a Division I athlete. There's going to be 1 million kids this year that are going to dream about being a Division I athlete, and for one reason or another, they're not going to be. They may not be good enough. The grades might not be good enough. They might have been in a situation where they didn't have an opportunity. I mean, there's going to be a lot of reasons, but there's going to be 1 million kids that are not going to be Division I athletes that really wish they were and dreamed about it when they were kids. And so I feel like sometimes our athletes miss that. Like, this is a privilege, dude. Like, this is a privilege to be a Division I athlete. We may not provide you with 100 pairs of shoes, and we might not be able to provide you with 10 uniforms. But what does that really matter? Like, you're getting an opportunity to be a college athlete. Yeah. That's a tremendous honor to be able to do that. And I think today, that's kind of lost in the translation a little bit sometimes. I have to remind them, like, you get to do this. You don't have to do this. You get to do this, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the challenge is the information overload they get from seeing what maybe somebody else gets or somebody else says or somebody else does this or somebody, they get really worried about a lot of things that doesn't lead to their success, right? I was talking to some of my athletes. What is that we're talking about? How is that going to help you get a college degree and help you go win conference? How is that this ancillary issue going to help you be successful? The answer is not only is it not going to help you be successful, it's keeping you from being successful. It's distracting you from the things that are very, very important. Did we get distracted back in the day? Of course we got distracted, but there was less opportunities to get distracted.
Right.
It's just so easy for the kids to get distracted today. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's incredible, man.
It is.
The amount of information they intake in a day is.
And then it is quite overwhelming to use that word to watch because I understand. Like I think about, man, I didn't have that. I didn't have to worry about XYZ or whatever. I wasn't worried if little Susie was Snapchatting me today or whatever, and she hadn't Snapchatted me, and I'm coach is like calling a play. Hey, we're gonna run X36 Y cross on 2. and you're looking at you better not have your phone in the huddle, boy.
No.
That's for dang sure.
But they're thinking about it.
Yeah, but it's over there in their locker.
They're thinking about
and
it.
is little Susie texting me
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
or is she out at Borden's getting an ice cream with little Tommy instead of waiting on me?
Yeah, I do say this though. People in our generation, we'll look at each other sometime going, thank God there wasn't social media.
What?
I might not be in my present position.
Correct. Well,
we just did some boy, teenage boy crazy stuff back in the day,
look, and I can tell you at Ole Miss there was a bar called the Gin back in the day,
yeah.
and you go to the Gin and you table danced, and I mean. I didn't, but a lot of the girls. I mean, it wasn't anything lewd or anything.
No,
it was just college kids having a good time, and
that would all be over social media right now. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you'd be on top of the tables, and it wasn't anything other than dancing.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
Right. But it wasn't anything lewd. But it
Yeah.
Nowadays it'd be like, oh, what is this girl doing? Oh, well,
we had the keg, we had Boo Boo's after hours disco. I mean,
right.
It's just different times, man.
Correct. Everything gets put onto some kind of site, and people judge it,
and it can be edited.
Yeah.
So the part of the some of the things that I talk about, so you have mentors, right? You have people you learn from. You have people that you want to be like. Athletes too, right? Athletes should try to find people they want to be like, right? So the challenge I have a little bit sometimes is finding older athletes that want that responsibility to be the person. I kind of try to get them to understand whether you want it or not, all eyes are on you. I understand that's a responsibility you don't want, but the reality of human nature is all eyes are on you. The younger athletes are watching you. You've been there, done that, have a reputation. You've done well. And so why wouldn't they want to do what you've done? You've won awards, you're a school record holder, whatever. So the fact that you don't want all eyes to be on you makes no difference. They're going to be on you. And so finding those kids that want that responsibility and really embrace it is sometimes a challenge. It really is, because we have an individual sport. Track is an individual sport. We make a team sport. So a lot of kids matriculate it because they're individuals. And so the whole team thing escapes them sometimes. And as they get older, they've never been in a position where other people are looking at them to lead, quote unquote. Whereas in a team sport, maybe the quarterback is going to be the leader, man. Like he's, probably the stud linebacker or maybe the free safety. There's going to be some people that are going to, by their position, their attitude, how they carry themselves, they're going to be the leader in a team sport because the dynamic is totally different, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in football, you score a touchdown. Well, they're all in the end zone, chest bumping, doing the stupid rolling the bowling pin and falling down,
Yep.
But they're all doing it. The big linemen, the receivers, everybody is celebrating. You get to track, and we're in the finals of the 100-meter dash, and I'm looking to my right, and it's my teammate. So not only are we teammates, but I might lose to that person, and I'm supposed to celebrate them. It's a different mindset, right? It's all on me, kind of. It's all on me, but then it's not. Because if we're trying to win a team championship, I'm trying to get that guy that might get beat by their teammate to be happy for their teammate and sad for them, know? Right. And it doesn't work that way all the time. There's resentments. There's, there's some, people are human.
Now so beat him every day in practice, and now he beat me in the meet.
Right? Yeah. So I think the dynamic of that, and the social media aspect, the ability to hide behind the thumb, right? Not have to maybe talk to a person in person, and kind of work out things, right? That's kind of lost on our kids today too. So there's a lot of things that trying to put together a winning program is a day-to-day battle. It really is, and sometimes I fail, right, as a coach. Sometimes I look back and have to self-assess and going, I dropped the ball on that because I should have done this, and if I'd have done this probably better with the outcome, because I'm always about outcome, right? I want kids to get a degree. That's an outcome. So I'm on their butt about their grades every day. I'm on their butt a lot. And they get tired of it, I'm sure. But it's my responsibility, I feel like, because that's an outcome I say at the beginning that I want. And so I take it serious. Well, I also want to develop them individually and be the best them that they can be according to their talent. So that's an outcome I got to worry about. And then I want the team to succeed. So, you got different outcomes, and how you handle certain situations is going to be kind of dependent upon what you want the final outcome to be. And that may be for the team's sake, but you may have to dismiss a kid, right? It's terrible. I hate it. Build relationships with kids. But for the good of the other 70, you may have to do that, right? So for that individual, it's probably going to help them out. Because if you do have to dismiss it, it's probably because of a consequence of something they need to learn a lesson. So doing that, it's on them now. Or am I going to learn from that? Or am I going to be mad, right? And keep doing what I'm doing and just be obstinate. So I think that's important. I think all of that's important,
Yep.
You're looking at, you're doing 5th and 6th graders or whatever, right?
Right. So, I've started in 5th. But I've been coaching that age level for 10 years, 12 years, something like that. So,
I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
It takes a special person.
It's fun. It's fun. I enjoy it.
I
like doing basketball the best because I'm the head coach for that. So I get to implement my stuff.
I couldn't do basketball. I think in 3 years I got 42 technical fouls. It's the only sport. It's the only sport you practice all week, and in 3 minutes a guy can have 3 fouls, and everything you did all week is out the window. Because now you have to change everything, and I'm a planner and organizer, and that drove me insane.
Yeah.
Like that whole foul trouble deal, and
Well, we know he won't be coaching the Cajun basketball team.
No, sir.
Here's the book. It's called This. That's Just Coach B. You can check it out on Amazon. We're going to come back. We're going to wrap things up. We're going to talk real quick. We'll talk about this upcoming track, the way you guys have finished out the
just
season.
about done. Yep.
Yeah, getting ready to wrap it up. We'll talk about that when we come back on Sports Chat.
Sports Chat with George Faust.
We are back on Sports Chat. Tommy Badon, he's the UL Raging Cajun track and field head coach. He joins us this week. And, Coach, first off, as we wrap it up here, just want to say thank you for spending some time with us. Great conversation. We learned a lot about coaching and handling the issues of the day. No doubt about it. With regards to your team, though, you guys have finished up indoor, looking at outdoor now.
Well, we're down to the last 2 weeks. So right now we have a meet tomorrow at South Alabama, and then we're going to bring a couple of kids to LSU on Saturday. But then we'll leave Wednesday the 14th to go to the conference championship, which is also at South Alabama in Mobile. So yeah, we're down to the last few weeks. 2 weeks after that, we have the regional championships. The regional championships are a qualifying meet. So you actually, it's the top 48 people in the eastern part of America. Okay. Now we're on the western side of the Mississippi, but as it will have it, Louisiana is the only state that's in the east somehow. The typical. So we're in the eastern part of America. So there's a lot of teams, and so each event, the top 48 marks in that particular event get to go to the regional championships, which this year is going to be in Lexington, Kentucky at the University of Kentucky. So we've already got 11 people qualified for that already, which we're excited about. We feel like we have maybe a couple more that has a chance. So that's like the you have to go to regionals to get to nationals. Once you get to regionals, the top 12 at regionals gets to go on to Eugene, Oregon.
Gotcha.
Which is University of Oregon,
correct.
Tracktown, USA.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a very difficult process to get to our national championships. And so we'll fire it up in Lexington and in the first part of the end of May, early part of June. Yeah.
All right. So that's awesome, and good luck to all your guys, and I guess some girls too, right?
We've got
a little
some really
both,
good females.
because you coach both.
Both. Yep.
Cool deal. Well, Coach, thanks so much for your time.
I enjoyed it.
Here's the book again. Ethan hooked me up. There you go. That's Just Coach B. Go check it out. And it just got finished.
I just came out last
hot
week.
off the presses.
Yes, sir.
Here.
And,
man, it was burning my hand.
Share it on Facebook, man.
There you go. There you go. Coach Tommy Badon is our guest. Thanks so much, Coach, for the time. Yep. And we'll see you next time right here on Sports Chat.